This is a graded card, and this is a raw card. One of these is easier to sell, easier to price, and causes way fewer headaches with buyers. The other one, if you buy it right, can make you a lot more money. Over the last 3 months, our family trading card business has done over $50,000 in sales, selling Pokemon sports cards and everything in between. One of the biggest questions is graded cards or raw cards? Which one is better to buy? So today, we're going to be breaking down what actually makes more money, where we focus our business, and when grading makes sense. So let's get into it. Quick disclaimer before we start, most of our business today has been focused on raw cards, but we've bought graded cards, sold graded cards, considered grading plenty of cards ourselves. So this isn't theory, this is what we've been actually learned buying collection, negotiating deals, and selling inventory every single week. Just putting that heads up there. Start with graded cards because there are some real advantages. The biggest advantage is consistent pricing. A PSA 10 is a PSA 10. If you look up sold listings, you usually find a pretty tight price range almost immediately. There's no guessing, there's no debating conditions, no buyers asking for 15 extra photos, fewer buyer issues. And honestly, this might be our favorite thing about graded cards. You don't have to deal with condition disputes. When you sell a raw card online, you describe if it's near mint, lightly played, moderately played, whatever. The problem is that the definition and the buyer's definition may be completely different. They can turn it into message refunds, returns, and unnecessary headaches. But with graded cards, the condition has already been determined. It's already been determined by a third party. The buyer knows exactly what they're getting into before the purchase. This makes online selling much easier. For eBay especially, graded cards can be incredibly easy to sell. The buyer trusts the grade. The value is established. The transaction is simple. There are so many collectors that also love slabs. Probably thinking, well, slabs sound amazing. Graded cards sound great. Easy pricing, fewer customer issues, smooth transactions. So why aren't we buying graded cards as much? Because the exact thing that makes graded cards easy to sell also makes them harder to buy profitably. The card is graded. Everyone knows what it's worth. The seller knows, the buyer knows, the market knows. It is so easy to find and look up the price of graded card. If a PSA 10 is sells for $300, most sellers aren't taking $200 for it. They're going to want 80, 85, even 90% of market value. And if they don't get it, they'll wait for the next buyer. Where margins live, the problem is that margins is what keeps a business alive. When we buy collections, we're trying to create enough room between what we pay and what we sell to cover fees, shipping, mistakes, market changes. All those things tie into buying cards and building a business. With raw cards, there's uncertainty. The condition isn't officially established. There might be center issues. There might be surface issues. We might miss something in the conditioning. And when we send it out to someone, they could complain about the condition of the card. Sellers are more uncertain about raw cards, so they're more willing to sell and negotiate and get us a better buying percent. And that's where the profit starts. Because grading is when some of the biggest wins and biggest mistakes in the hobby happen. Let's use a real example. For Vaporeon VMAX, I personally have this card. It's an awesome card. PSA 10 is one of my personal favorites. And if I show you graded card is this Vaporeon VMAX PSA 10. Another beautiful, gorgeous card. The example I'm going to be using today is this Vaporeon. Raw near mint copies go about $80. $100. If you guys don't know, this is a promo card. PSA 9 goes about what the raw price is, $80 to $120. PSA 10 is $800 to $900. If you notice, if you value the PSA 9, if you value the raw cost at $100, that is an 8x return on the slab. That is an insane return, by the way. That is an insane return on a graded card between a 9 and a 10. So you can tell there is a premium when it comes to PSA 10s. That's when grading becomes exciting. If you find a clean copy, you spec the centering, you check the corners, you convince yourself this has got to be a PSA 10. Then you send it off and wait. They up the wait time. Before it was weeks. Before it was a couple months. Now it's 8 months. 8 months you have to wait for a graded card. Before we go into the excitement, I know it's super exciting. If you get that 10, it's amazing. But there's things that come in that you have to take into account when it comes to grading. PSA grading is about $25 to $50. It's actually risen more, so I'll update the numbers. Shipping insurance is another $20 to $30. Turnaround time is 8 months now, depending on, that is the cheapest option, is 8 months. Could even be longer. So if you were to send a card right now, you'll get it back by next year, February or March. Grading cards is a fee, and if you're grading a more higher end card, if it reaches over $1,000, they are going to upcharge you a couple $100 based on the card's value. So you're taking a calculated bet. You're investing about $50 to $100 on a card getting a 10. So the question you have to ask yourself is, will this card grade high enough to justify the cost and risk? Sometimes it's yes, sometimes it isn't. Where does this leave us? We decided as a business that we are going to go raw cards. And here's why. When we're buying collections, negotiating on Facebook Marketplace, or looking through someone's childhood binder, raw cards create opportunity. People are usually much more flexible on price. We can negotiate, we can bundle, we can find value, we can buy at 70 to 75%. I made a whole video about that buying rule and how important that is when it comes to creating a business. That is, getting that 70 to 75% buying rule is much harder to get with PSA slabs because everyone knows the exact price. Raw cards also keep inventory moving. List a desirable near mint card at a fair price and it usually sells like that. It sells quickly. Not everyone wants to pay the premium for slabs as well. There are markets for slabs and raw cards. We want to do both, of course. We've been wanting to do both. But when it comes to flipping and profitability, we find that raw cards are more profitable. But do we occasionally get condition questions? Absolutely. Do buyers sometimes disagree with our assessment? Yep. Honestly, all the time. But it is just part of the business. For volume, turnover, and consistent cash flow, raw cards has been the engine of our operation. I'm gonna go off on a little rant here. Even with a scanner, we scan the front and back too. People can see perfectly what the conditions are, and people still rant about it. Look at it before you buy it. Oh my gosh. But it is the way to make money and make this business work, because we get to buy it at a good margin. So I'm not saying we never grade. We have a bundle of cards that we want to grade. I have to believe this card can generally get a PSA 10 or a PSA 1. PSA 1s are fun. Why not? Have a little fun when it comes to grading, Make sure that the math makes sense. So graded versus raw, what actually makes more sense? Cash flow for a business, raw cards. Single card home runs, graded cards. Graded cards, absolutely. This is a gorgeous card. You can double or triple the value of a card by grading a card. It's also another important aspect is to send your own cards. Do a percent of the raw cards or your percent of the money that you are willing to invest. Let's say every month you're willing to invest $500 to send in cards for grading. And eventually those cards will roll back in and you get to reinvest that with the business, and you just gotta hope and pray that the market doesn't change because they upped it to 8 months. That's the only risk when it comes to graded cards now if you wanna send in cards for yourself. So what's more sustainable? Raw cards, better buying opportunities, faster inventory turnover, more flexibility. If you're chasing a huge score on the right card, grading can absolutely be worth it. A PSA 10 on the right card can absolutely change the equation. But day to day, our business runs on raw cards. If you look at our eBay, if you look at our TCG player, we have thousands of raw cards just sitting on there. Because the business runs on margins, and people are more willing to let raw cards go at a much lower percent than graded cards. Protect the margins, and the rest will take care of itself. So this is my honest take on raw cards versus graded cards. If you found this video helpful, please let me know. If you like this new style of filming and creating videos, please let me know. Like the video, subscribe, comment. It would really mean the world to me. I want to keep making videos with you guys and educating, learning with you, because it's been fun building this business, and I would love to keep doing that and make videos to help people that also want to build a business and create a business. So it would mean the world to me. And I hope you guys have a great day. If you have any questions, write down below. I'd love to respond to every single one of them. But other than that, I think that's it. That's it. I appreciate you guys so much. Peace.